I had an absolute blast filming watches in Pennsylvania, shopping for watches at the King of Prussia Mall, visiting RGM watches, going to Indian Echo Caverns, having a watch enthusiast meetup at the Brent Miller condo in Clock Towers, which is the old Hamilton factory. I had a great time, ate some great food, met some great people. And in this video, I'm just going to share some of the highlights of the trip. For those of you that might be interested in coming out next time I'm in the region to a watch meetup and experiencing some of these things that are just so fun as a watch fan. So I'll start chronologically at the beginning. I flew into Philadelphia and I was picked up by my friend and fellow watch enthusiast, Brad, who also works at Brent Miller Jewelers. And I told him, hey, I've had a cheesesteak before in Utah, but I'm sure it's not the same as getting one in Philadelphia. So he took me out for a cheesesteak. We went to Gino's. He had never been there. I had obviously never been there. And I've heard from a few of you on social media that it is a rather touristy location, but one you've got to try at least one time to say that you've done it, that you've had that experience. And so that was pretty fun. After getting cheesesteaks, Brad took me back to Lancaster, which is just a gorgeous drive over rolling hills, verdant, tall trees, very different from my local, area that I live in Utah in the high mountain desert. So a beautiful area of the country. And I stayed in Clock Towers, which is luxury condominiums that used to be the Hamilton factory. I believe the building was built about 100 years ago, and it was the place where Hamilton, made their watches. And so just that history is fun as a watch fan. And there's art all around the condo of various Hamilton watches and Hamilton watches that have been used in film. And it's one of the larger condos in the complex, and it's owned by Brent Miller Jewelers, specifically the owner of the authorized dealer. And he allows any watch enthusiast that wants to visit the region and buy a luxury watch from the authorized dealer to stay there complimentary and enjoy all of the fun watch-related things and non-watch related things that are in the region. So if you're interested in having a similar experience and staying in the old Hamilton factory, buying your Speedmaster there and visiting the National Watch and Clock Museum or RGM watches or whatever else that you're interested in doing, I'll leave that link in the description of the video so you can plan that trip out. It is obviously highly recommended by me. So I stayed again in Clock Towers. And the next morning, I went with Brad to RGM Watches, which is in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, a nice, beautiful, small town. And the building used to be a bank about 100 years ago, as I think the date it was constructed. And obviously now it's occupied by RGM. And Brad and I spent about 2 hours with Roland Murphy of RGM, and he took us through the entire building, which was beyond fascinating. And if you're a watch nerd like I am, you would just geek out at seeing the behind the scenes activities. I watched craftsmen hand finishing components. Someone else was on a hot plate that was thermally bluing some components. Someone else was operating the CNC machine. And it was just so cool to see the process and to look at these old machines that do, traditional guilloche work on dials and purling for movements and whatnot. And then I got to film some of RGM's watches. I handled a tourbillon for the first time, which was wild. You could see the tourbillon from the crystal, from the case back, and from a curved crystal on the side of the case. So you had 3 different perspectives to view the in-house tourbillon that is designed and manufactured here in the United States by RGM. That was super cool. So I will have a separate video just about the RGM visit that I will link in the description when it uploads to YouTube. But that was fascinating, and I would have to say it was the most interesting watch-related experience that I've ever had. And I'm sure Brad feels the same. That was really, really special. So after visiting RGM, Brad and I went back to the authorized dealer, to Brent Miller Jewelers, and I spent the day just filming watches. And I must have filmed about a dozen watches that I am personally interested in. So you will see some reviews coming over the next month or so of Grand Seikos that had just gotten in and sold before I left. So it was kind of an opportune time to get some footage of some incredible dials and movements and whatnot. I filmed Hamilton and Omega and Tudor and Breitling. And a couple of the highlights for me, one was the Breitling. It was a Chronomat 43, and I'm kind of nerding out on Breitling recently. It's become my personal favorite brand. And to see the ice blue Chronomat, which is a pretty uncommon watch to come across, quote unquote, in the wild, with the platinum bezel on the rubber strap, that blue just sung. It was the right shade. It was a unique shade. And that one is a serious contender for a future purchase for me. It was very, very well done. Another one that stood out was the Hamilton Khaki Field Titanium in 38 millimeters. And I can pull off really anything from 36 to 44, 45, depending on the case, with relative ease. But I have preferences like most of you. And I've always thought that the khaki in 38 just looked a little bit too small on my wrist with my frame. But I think I'm coming around, guys. I'm changing my way of thinking. The 38 in titanium looked perfect on my wrist. It felt proportional. It didn't look too small. It has the titanium. It has the 80-hour power reserve. It's a heck of a sports piece for under $1,000. So that one was pretty impressive. And then the other one was the Omega CK859 reissue that has been discontinued. And so it was really fortunate that I got to see one. It had just come in to Brent Miller Jewelers, I think a couple days previous for me getting there. So that one is, again, one of my favorites. So I filmed some awesome watches that afternoon and evening. And then I went to dinner with some of the staff of Brent Miller at the Horse Inn, which is my personal favorite restaurant in the region. So if you're ever in Lancaster, definitely go to the Horse Inn. And you've got to try the horse fries. They're the best fries I've ever had. They're so good. So that was a great day. The next day I had some free time and I went to Lidditz, which is one of the oldest cities in the country. It's an absolutely beautiful city, the home of Wilbur chocolate. So I had a couple friends that went to the Rolex school, the watchmaking school that's in Lidditz, and they told me, please bring me back some Wilbur buds. So I had to load up on some chocolates. And then I went through the downtown there, and I went to a couple antique shops because I'm a dad. I've got little girls, and they're like, Dad, are you going to bring me back like a special treat from Pennsylvania? And of course I have to, right? I wanted to get something little for them. So I went to these old antique shops, and I found one that had some books. And I want to give a good gift, right? I want to give hopefully a gift they will enjoy, but also it's meaningful and educational. So I found an old Nancy Drew mystery that I think was printed originally in the 1950s. And I have a Hardy Boy collection myself. I grew up on Hardy Boy mystery books. So I got my oldest daughter her first Nancy Drew mystery story there. And I found a little critter book for my 5-year-old. She's learning how to read. Anyways, after Lidditz, I went back to Brent Miller, and that day, that afternoon until they closed was just open time for watch enthusiasts in the region to come by the store, meet me, say hi, talk watches, take a look at what's in the store. The store had some refreshments available there. So I spent the afternoon just meeting watch fans and talking watches with them, which is always a good time. That evening, I think we went to dinner in Lidditz with a few members of the staff, as well as Rory, who is the director of the National Watch and Clock Museum. So good food, good people, another great day. And the last day was the fullest and possibly the funnest as well. I went with Brad in the morning to Indian Echo Caverns, which is pretty close to Hershey, Pennsylvania. And we just went through these massive caverns. We had a little tour there, and I saw stalactites and stalagmites, and again, very different from the region where I live in Utah in the Rocky Mountains. So that was just fascinating, and I was kind of amused at some of the graffiti that was in there from, the mid to early 1800s, people putting their names and dates in the cave. I even saw a Masonic symbol way back in one of the caves that is estimated to be from around 1840. So that was a pretty fun morning in that cave system, that cavern system. After that, Brad and I went back to the store. We had another afternoon of just meeting watch enthusiasts, talking watches, hanging out, eating some refreshments there. And once that was done, some members of my Patreon group and some members of the store and a couple people I had met that day, we went back to the Brent Miller condo where I have been staying there in the old Hamilton factory. And we just had a casual dinner with one another. There were some drinks, just really fun time. Some of us brought some of our watch collections, and so we were checking out each other's watches, talking watches. I insisted on a group picture. Maybe I'm turning into my mom, but I said, hey, let's do a nice group picture. And then I said, all right, let's do the cheesy, put up your wrist, show off your watch. So you can make fun of me if you want to, but it was a nice time there. Chatting with other watch enthusiasts and eating some good barbecue, some brisket that Brent Miller provided. So that was the last day. That was the last full day. The next day I was flying home to Pennsylvania. And so on the way back to Philadelphia, back to the airport, Brad took me to the King of Prussia Mall, and we had to go through the different authorized dealers there. So I had to stop by Cartier. Went to Bulgari, which was just so awesome to see the Octo Chrono in person. That thing is incredible, absolutely incredible watch. So we did that. I talked with a few watch enthusiasts that were by Bukhara. And let's see what else. We went to the Tag Heuer and Breitling Boutique. I think the only one we really missed was Omega. And we walked by Swatch as well to see if there were any Moon swatches in stock, which they did not have any in stock. After that, got back on the plane, flew home, and just had an absolute blast out there in the region. Philadelphia, Mount Joy, Lancaster, just a great part of the country, really great people, a lot of fun things to do. So I'm going to try to come back in November. Hamilton is having a big 130th brand anniversary that will be taking place at Brent Miller Jewelers. So I want to come back for that event. And then also, I would love to meet up with those of you that I met up with last time. And hopefully our little group can expand and we can go do other fun things in the area. Let's say all of us go to Indian Echo Caverns or to Hershey or Lidditz, or we go to the National Watch and Clock Museum. I would really enjoy doing that. So tentatively, that's around, I think, November 8th, which is Tuesday. That's midterm election day. That's the Hamilton event. So as more information is made clear on that, as I get specifics, I will share that with you guys. We'll plan another event. We'll plan another trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. So have a great day. Look forward to that RGM video and those dedicated reviews of the Grand Seikos and Seikos and other models that I filmed there out at Brent Miller Jewelers. And again, thank you to Brent Miller Jewelers. All right, guys, see you next time.